Welcome to the Dead Astrologers Society. Tonight's episode number 6, is all about the magical world of the Mayan cosmos, shamanism, astrology, and more. So thank you very much for joining us here on paramaniaradio.com. I'm your host, Donna Woodwell. I'm an astrologer, hypnotist, magician, chief troublemaker. Take your pick. You can find me at fourmoonsastrology.com in Austin, Texas, the best little city in Texas. And like our tagline says, the Dead Astrologers Society is the place where history meets with mystery. So every week we have some special guests who are talking about topics from the vast history and cultural expanse of astrology, the study of the stars, and how as above is so below and as within is so without. And so tonight, as I said, our journey begins into the wonderful world of the Mayan cosmos and the worldview. And we're going to touch on all kinds of things like calendars and the nature of time and space and how we as creative creatures talk to all the other creative creatures in this space. Our guests are eclectic and we're starlighters, and tonight we have some special ones for you. Carlos Cedillo is a Mayan day keeper and a musician and a fascinating human being, and I can't wait to talk more with him. We also have the lovely Benjamin Bernstein, a longtime friend of mine, who is an astrologer and a shaman himself. They both have fascinating tales to tell, so I welcome them both tonight.
Hi, Donna.
Hi, Donna.
Hi. Hi, Carlos and Benjamin. It's nice to talk to you. So I thought we could start out tonight with a little bit from Carlos talking about what the Mayan calendar is. I know all of us heard a lot about it last year, the year we were all waiting for. And so let's start there. What is the Mayan calendar, and what does this have to do with astrology, or not?
Hi. Well, of course, it's a very big question. There's a lot of aspects to the calendar, but I think a simple way to look at it is that it's the only calendar that is based on the human body. So the little saying you opened up with "as above, so below" for the Mayan calendar, it's kind of as we are here below, so things are outside of us, above us. The main reason for this is that it is based on the fact that we have 20 digits, or fingers and toes, and we also have 13 major joints in our body. Our ankles, knees, hips, our wrists, elbows, shoulders, and your neck is 13. So the combination of those, 20 times 13, is 260. And that's the sacred calendar. That's the main calendar that everything else in the Mayan culture kind of grew out of. And there's a long count calendar, which is a little bit different, but still based on the 260 count. And that's what the big hype about December 21st, 2012 was about, the long count calendar. And that's really like a calendar in your car, where there's these cycles. The small cycle goes through, and then the bigger one flips, and the next one flips after all of those ones flip. So, of course, it's a little more complex than that, but that's a simple way to start out.
So it's a view of cycles of time that is grounded in human biology, which relates to our experience of the universe as a whole. So
yes.
What do you do with that information? How does that help us live our lives, navigate the universe?
Well,
this is the big old so what question.
Yeah. Well, the big so what is that it's in our DNA. And literally, if you studied cell structure and all, you'll find these same patterns in there. And by looking at that and counting the days in this way, we actually discover, or the Maya actually discovered a long time ago, that all of our lives evolve and change. All the changes that we go through just as people in our mental and emotional states, we all graduate
Okay, I am not hearing
way
Carlos.
to different
Carlos?
levels in our lives, and those all are timed according to the sacred calendar. You're not hearing me?
You cut out there for
Oh,
just a minute,
I'm
but it's
here.
fine now.
Are you hearing me now?
I'm hearing you now just fine.
Now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. What part did we leave out at, or did it fall out at?
Just a moment before you came back in. It was only a few seconds.
Oh, okay. Um, so yeah, so I was just saying that it's kind of like a universal DNA pattern, this calendar.
Yeah.
And it's also that number 13 is in the Fibonacci sequence.
And what's that?
That's where you count numbers adding each other up, like 1 plus 2 is 3, and 2 plus 3 is 5, and 3 plus 5 is 8, and 5 plus 8 is 13. So that 13 is there in very, very important part of the Mayan calendar, and it's also in almost all of nature has this Fibonacci sequence. Anytime you look at flowers or trees and study patterns, you'll find this Fibonacci sequence.
And I can see from your logo here that you have a spiral in it. Is there a relationship between a spiral and a Fibonacci sequence?
Well, yeah, I think when you map it out in the squares, that's a pretty famous
kind of spiraling through time.
Yeah, definitely. And what happens is, the smaller cycles generate the bigger cycles, and it's kind of like just think of the music, like we were talking about guitar before the show started, and when you pluck a string on the guitar, it gives you one sound, but then when you break up that sound a third and a quarter, you get higher harmonics. And so the harmonics are other pitches, other sounds that are hidden kind of in the larger harmonic. So the Mayan calendar kind of maps out these harmonies, and so you can look at larger cycles of time and see what happened as in the shorter amount. And but so that gets a little complex mathematically, but if you think about the musical harmonies, excuse me,
it reminds me of the music of the spheres. It reminds me of the music of the spheres we might be more familiar with astrology. Benjamin, what do you think? Astrology and harmonics.
Oh, well, the planets in our solar system definitely make their own music of the spheres, absolutely. In astrology, we have what we call hard and soft aspects, where the energetic connection a planet is making might be more harmonious or more challenging as they do things with each other. And, for example, the harmonious connections might be like a major chord, and the hard aspects might sound like a dissonant or minor chord. So when you can feel and see the Western astrology planets, or the planets in any astrology system, really making their motions, then they do make their own harmony of the spheres. In fact, there's actually composers who will create songs based on your natal chart, and they can translate what the planets are doing into actual music.
Well, this is going to be a fascinating topic because Carlos is also a musician, in addition to being a Mayan daykeeper. And when we get to the break, we're going to listen to the song that he created for today. And so let's all talk about that relationship between astrology, music, harmonies, and healing, because I think healing is an important part of this. How do you find, when working with your clients, because you both have clients, that notion of harmony works with healing?
Oh, I'll jump on that if you like.
Sure.
Well, I am one of the things I do is I'm a shaman, and that I actually use a lot of music in my healing work. For example, when I'm working on a client, I'm frequently vocalizing. I might be singing a pre-established song. I might be extemporaneously creating sounds. I might be playing a flute, ringing a chime, all sorts of things, shaking rattles and various rhythms. And it's interesting in the shamanic work where the more there's often a sequence that typically happens in the course of a healing session where at first the energy of the music will be far more aggressive and intense, like the rattles will come out and they'll shake really fast and intensely, and usually the left and right rattle will be doing polyrhythms and creating kind of what you might consider dissonant energy. And the function of that kind of, or if I'm singing, I might be singing very loud, intense, fast stuff. And all of these serve to break up the energy, because the first thing I often have to do when I begin working with a client after I've kind of set the energetic stage is we've got to break through the blocked dark energies so they can clear. When they come in, typically they're in a rather fixed and static state. So you use the more intense, more dissonant things to get through to it often. Then once they start clearing, the music automatically starts to become gentler and more harmonious until toward the middle and end of a shamanic healing session. Often I'm singing long, consistent tones, or I'm ringing this beautiful chime that sounds like heaven, and so the music tends to become softer and more harmonious. Even if I'm singing the same song I sang before, it might be sung more slowly and the notes might be longer, and there's a whole gentler energy now in there because the energy of that moment is moving more into the harmonious thing. And in the client's experience too, they've gone from being in a more disharmonious state that was more reflective of the early music, and then they move into this more harmonized state, and the music shifts to reflect that as it moves forward. I hope that is something like what you were looking for there, Donna.
I'm not looking for anything. I'm looking for an interesting conversation with two very fabulous men. And so I'm a happy camper. Carlos, what do you think? You're a musician.
I've actually done very similar work to that, healing people. I used to do a lot of crystal healings and would use drums and gongs and rattles also, and flutes to find the tones that people need for the healing. But the work that I do now with music, I use electronic music, a lot of computer music, and I'll kind of just let my intuition guide me to the sounds that need to be used for that particular day's energy. And I found when people, like with the same birthday of a particular day that I composed a song, they'll resonate with it, they'll identify with it, and they'll recognize a lot of the emotions in the music and all. So yeah, it's really it's a kind of uncharted territory in a way. There's a lot more exploring to do in that regard as far as scholarly research or anything like that. But definitely, I found it working with my clients.
Well, I definitely feel like, at least to me internally, I know we've both talked before that every astrologer, everyone who's doing this kind of work, works with the experience a little differently. Some people work with charts on a page, and some people work with the feeling of circumstances. Some people work actively with celestial intelligences or spiritual intelligences from the rocks and the trees, and in your case, both music, or all of the above in some mixture. That, to me, it feels like things are, especially now, really shifting into that feeling, intuitive area as we move forward into this, what feels to me like a time of change. So how do you see what you're doing as a reflection of perhaps the times that we're in?
I think the time, we're definitely in a new time.
Okay, Carlos, we're having problems with your audio. I can't hear you. Benjamin, can you hear him?
He is cutting out for me. Perhaps what I'm hearing too.
Okay, well, our producer's gonna work on this for a second, I hope. Benjamin, why don't I throw the question out to you? How do you feel your practice is shifting given the energies that we are facing as a collective?
Oh, radically. I mean, the kind of work I'm doing compared to 2 or 3 years ago, it bears a lot of differences. I'm still doing astrology, but with almost every client I have, I'm having discussions about awakening and giving them a little invocation tool that they can actually sample the awakened state for themselves right while they're sitting there with me. I'm attracting almost entirely clients who are, if not blatantly spiritual, at least actively working on themselves, and they get that they're not looking for, tell me when my lover's going to show up. They're working on how can I partner with the cosmic energies and co-create with them. It's more of that kind of vibe. And there's of course, I grant you, I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, which is one of the more conscious communities of the world. But a great many of my clients work by phone or Skype, and they're all over the place. But I'm finding a growing awareness of people being aware that there is a shift into a golden age happening now. And I find my work as an astro shaman is not just to help people understand their astrology, but to help them actually make a shift in consciousness. And the vast majority of my clients, even if they didn't understand coming in that was going to happen, are completely receptive to that and often consider it the best part of the session that we had. You know, I'll say one more thing. It's very clear to me that we have entered a new golden age, and we have had a big shift. And my own belief is that within 2 or 3 decades, most of the people on the planet are going to be enlightened. They're going to be operating out of the divine consciousness that they really are, and no longer under the spell of the illusion that they're separate beings. And, you know, part of my mission is to help as many people as I can attain that state. And that's
now, I think we have Carlos back now. Carlos, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, that sounds much better.
Yes.
I don't know if you heard us, but we were talking about this kind of work and the sort of planetary shift in consciousness. Do you think that there's a shift in consciousness going on?
Yeah, I got to hear part of what Benjamin was talking about, and that sounds very much in alignment with what I was trying to say before I got cut out. There's the shift had definitely happened, but it's a matter of waking up people to that fact and finding it in themselves where the shift happened at. And what I've been trying to do, I do a lot of fire ceremonies out here, and I try to just use the calendar to kind of pinpoint a lot of ideas of where things are shifting at, and
Now, both of you used words like shift in consciousness, enlightenment, divine consciousness. What do those things mean?
I'll take a stab at that, if that's okay.
Sure. Go for it.
I mean, there's a whole magazine called What is Enlightenment, and they've published for years, and they still haven't decided the issue. So, anyhow, but the best way I can understand it is the enlightened self is already present within each person, and it's the simple awareness of what's happening. If the way you could imagine this is in the middle of your head is the part of you that's just purely aware, and then what gets layered on is the body and the thoughts and the emotions and the ego, and everything on that is like accessories. But the core part of you that even is aware of anything, just simple pure awareness, is your enlightened self already present, hiding in plain sight. One phrase about awakening is it's your natural state. It's what you always have been. And you don't have to earn it or do something to get it, because why do you have to go get what you already are? It's more of a matter of you just have to realize it, and bang, you're there. It can happen in an instant for anybody.
Have you... go ahead, Carlos.
Do you mind?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's mostly true. I would add that we have to put our awareness somewhere. We direct our consciousness, literally what we are aware of out on the world, and it takes a little bit of conscious effort to free ourselves from a lot of distraction. And once we allow just pure consciousness to come into us and not focus on a lot of the media, a lot of the news, a lot of just drama going on in our relationships, when we let all that stuff go, then we can get a more clear idea of the enlightenment and get deep inside of our core, where we can connect to the universal light that is at the center of the galaxy and the center of the universe. And then that's more of the real and meant, when we just allow our inner light to come through without all the distractions.
Right. I agree with what you're saying, by the way. But once one is awakened, one can participate in all the external things of the world and still remain in the awakened state. So you don't have to choose one or the other. I think the point, what you're pointing to, Carlos, which I totally agree with, is when you're first learning to access that consciously, that's when it's good to turn away from all the external crazy stimuli and
Right.
focus within. And I have a little invocation. I'll just share, what I share with people all the time, and it's very effective in most cases. If you'll just say the phrase, "Spirit that I am, please saturate me with the maximum amount of light and divine consciousness that serves highest good, starting now, thank you." And then if you will simply feel your breath, not control it, but just feel it as it comes in and out and keep returning to it each time you're distracted, that can bring that state in a matter of minutes or even seconds for some people.
Yeah, I also like to use the violet flame invocations a lot. Just sitting there kind of repeating, "I am the violet flame in me burning out impurity. I am the violet flame in me burning out impurity." It helps helps a great deal.
Well, I love working with that too. And there are thousands of ways there, and there's no one best way. There is what works. And the violet flame is awesome. The invocation I use works with a lot of people, and and that's what I love, is that there's no central organizing hierarchy running this. It's like it's spontaneously arising at the ground level, and everyone who is awakening or moving in that direction is getting things that work for them. And I just love that, it's all happening spontaneously and organically, and everybody is finding their own way in. So it's so cool that there's so many beautiful paths into that state of being.
Indeed.
Have either of you ever read the book Stalking the Wild Pendulum?
It's off. I think I read that decades ago. That's been a long time ago.
It's an older book, but in the book, if I recall correctly, he talks about consciousness in the sense of what we're consciously aware of as like a series of strobe light flashes, that we are constantly flashing from one picture to the other, and how our everyday awareness actually focuses on change is by comparing like one slide to another slide, kind of like that stereoscopic thing that they do to decide whether planets are moving in the sky or not. You look at one, you look at the other, and you notice the change between the two of them. But in between those flashes, in between those flashes of our awareness, there is kind of a lacuna, an empty space. But scientists have experimented with things, and if you stimulate a person in short little bursts that fit between the cracks of those conscious flashes, the conscious mind isn't aware of it, but the subconscious mind is. And it starts to beg the question of, well, if it's not the conscious mind that's aware of that happening, what exactly is aware of it happening, and what is that part of us that's on all the time, which is what you both brought up.
Very interesting.
For the Maya, they believe that there's what they call the underworlds, and it's the spirit realm, that the shamans connect with, that most normal people don't get to access, or if they do, they don't have full awareness that they're doing that. So it's where the ancestors dwell, all the spirits, and I did use I was going to say that I meant I do use a pendulum a lot with crystals, and to find answers to questions, to find people's energies, to open their chakras, and that's a great tool to use, just using a pendulum.
Well,
one of many tools in my arsenal.
On that, we're going to give people a teaser to talk about when we come back from the break. Some of the other tools in your arsenals, because you're both suggesting that you have many in your bag of tricks. And we're going to talk about the idea of the underworld and the overworld in the sense of the sky, and what these realms have to do with astrology and your practice. And while we're gone, we have a special treat for all of you. We have one of Carlos's pieces of music that was written for today. So why don't you give us a minute description of that, and then we will go on the break and let everyone enter their altered state of consciousness listening to your song.
Yeah, this is one of the pieces that I wrote. It was 520 days ago that I wrote this piece of music on an 8 Ahau day, and today is an 8 Ahau, which means sun or ancestors. So it carries the same energy as today, even though it was written 520 days ago. But on the sacred calendar, it was an 8 Ahau day, and I just allowed my intuition to kind of guide me to these sounds and rhythms and everything. So I hope you enjoy it for what it is.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing it. The song is 7 minutes long, so we're only going to hear an excerpt during the break. But you can find many of Carlos's music on his website, and he will explain at the end of the show how you can get in contact with that. But in the meantime, without further ado, we need to go on a break. I hope you return on the flip side so we can talk about the underworld, the overworld, stars, and other forms of celestial magic. So stay tuned. And welcome back to the Dead Astrologer Society. I am here tonight with two absolutely fascinating guests, Benjamin Bernstein and Carlos Cedillo. So thank you very much for coming on the show tonight. And we're going to talk about what we promised, journeys to the underworld and the overworld. And I know you both had experience in this area. So Benjamin, tell us about some of your personal explorations.
Well, the thing that really transformed me so radically was drinking ayahuasca. And ayahuasca is a sacred medicinal tea that has been used for thousands of years by indigenous cultures in the Amazon in South America. And more people from Northern America are now traveling to Peru to do this. And I've been down there several times doing what are called dietas, where you're down there for like 2 weeks, and in one case, 4 weeks, drinking ayahuasca either 5 or 10 times. Ayahuasca is psychoactive. It puts you into an altered state very powerfully. But it's not just tripping or having fun. Ayahuasca is very serious medicine, and the overall effect it had, I've drunk it 52 times now. And the overall effect is that through the several years I've been doing this, a lot of the dark energy I was carrying have been cleared away. When you drink ayahuasca, you see them as entities, and they get flushed out. And ayahuasca has literally taken me all the way to spiritual awakening. It's an extraordinary being that you first encounter in the form of a dark, thick brown tea that you drink, and then you realize what you're dealing with is a hyper-intelligent, multidimensional being who extends everywhere from that physical manifestation up to complete divine unity, and I think she can access every dimension in between. It's an extraordinary thing and very amazing. So that's the overview of it.
Right.
And
my journeys were with peyote, and I would travel a great deal in Mexico, and there's desert areas here in the northern part of Mexico where I would found some peyote gardens, and take a few friends sometimes by myself, and just kind of spend all night eating the peyote. And that was really pretty incredible. It's got a personality all its own. And I've had many prophetic visions while on peyote. And a lot without it also. Just had prophetic dreams a lot. And also I was fortunate enough, I've been on 2 journeys to Guatemala with Don Alejandro Oxla, the Grand Elder of the Maya. He introduced me to they just called it the sacred drink of the Maya, which is made up of 7 different herbs, which by themselves don't do anything, but when the combination of them turns it into a pretty amazing experience. It's kind of like dreaming while you're awake, and then also it dreams prophetic as well. So yeah, a lot of fun with the earth medicines in the spirit realms there. I am part of the Native American church here in Texas too also, so still using the peyote.
Well, you both said something very similar, which was talking about ayahuasca or talking about peyote as a personality, really. So you're not using words
Yeah.
like archetype and things. And I think for me, that's one major difference between a lot of modern astrological practices. They tend to look at a map of the sky at the time you were born and words on a page and fitting keywords together, but it's all, to me, sometimes sanitized. And when you're talking about journey work, you're talking about really a worldview that's animistic, where the rocks and the trees and the sky and the planets and everything has its own personality. So, how does the work that you do with astrology, with the calendar, invoke that kind of animistic worldview?
Can I go first?
Go ahead, Carlos. I'll go second.
Yeah. In the Mayan worldview and a lot of the Native American worldview, the nature is alive and conscious. And the way I see it is that there is only one consciousness in the universe. The whole universe is this consciousness, and we are just small points of reference of accessing this consciousness, and everything has this consciousness: the planets, trees, the water, the air. And the Maya calendar helps you find your place in this big cosmic consciousness, and orients you to be able to see from the worldview, from the point of view that you're meant to see things, and to express yourself the way that the universe and this one single consciousness intended for you to see and how to be. So, yeah, that's a short exposition there.
Yeah. What comes up to me in response to your question, Donna, one of the services I do is called shamanic astrology, which is something I was inspired to do after I started drinking ayahuasca. And it involves working with the conscious planets. What we do in this work is it's a combination of Western astrology and in fact, I'll just mention a book was just published this last week called Transpersonal Astrology: Explorations at the Frontier. And it's a compilation book with different authors, and I am in there with a chapter on shamanic astrology. So if someone wants to really learn more about this, then they can read my whole chapter in this new book, which they'll be able to order within a couple of days from astroshaman.com, my site. But in a nutshell, what you do is you start with traditional Western astrology, the paper, the concepts, the abstractions, and you do a full analysis of that planet that you're going to invoke, and you understand how it functions intellectually. But when you're having the discussion about the planet, you get the client to tell you, okay, in what ways is this planet not behaving the way you want it to? Let's say you're looking at the sun, for example, and the client is feeling depleted. They don't have a lot of energy. Well, one thing the sun represents is vitality. And you can call on the sun when you invoke it, say, sun, I want you to, really amp up the vitality and give me the maximum amount of vitality that serves my highest good. And when you do a full interpretation of that sun and you go deep astrologically, and just to speak technically for just a moment, you're going to look at the planet, the sign it's in, the house it's in, the aspects it's making, the houses it rules, that's all of it. So there's a bunch of interrelated factors that an astrologer is going to look at, and it gives a very deep and interwoven picture of how that sun is interweaving into their whole life. Then the invocation may run 4 or 5 minutes, where you're calling on the sun to do all these different things based on all the ways that it functions in the chart. And when I do this with my clients, we both feel that planet come in. After we complete the invocation, we say, now, please come in and make the changes I just asked for. And the client is repeating my words, so they're actually doing the invocation themselves. Then the energy comes in. We both feel it. And it comes in. It starts making energetic shifts in their field, and those shifts are permanent. So that's one way to do shamanic use of the planets in a Western astrology context. You're combining the analytical side of Western astrology, but you're invoking the direct shamanic invocation of that planet's energy at the same time.
And when you say traditional astrology, See, to me, I mean, you both know that I studied my own version of shamanic journey work, sat in circles, sat in ceremonies for years, and then I was initiated into a Hermetic order. And my Hermetic teacher used to say that if you really want to understand the Western tradition in a way that's going to make sense to you, you're going to have to go back several thousand years. And I really didn't understand what she meant by that until at the suggestion of Maria Matus, I went back and read the Chaldean oracles, which were written, about the 4th century BCE, AD, if you prefer. And in the description of feeling energetically relating to the planets, they describe, the pneuma, that's what it is in Greek, descending down over your head and into your shoulders and settling down into your abdomen, and then the voice of the spirit coming through you in this poetic language. And as I read, my jaw just dropped, because it was a description that was perfectly evocative of the experiences that I'd had sitting in shamanic circles. This is what the Greeks were doing with astrology 2,000 years ago. And I think there are echoes of it. If you read the Picatrix that Christopher Warnock just came out with a translation of not long ago, you read some of the works of Marsilio Ficino from the Renaissance, and that's still captured. That idea of what it means to connect to the planets is there all along in the Western tradition. We've just forgotten a lot about it in the last few hundred years.
Yep.
With the scientific revolution and all of our modern ways of thinking. We've shut ourselves off from the idea of being in a living cosmos. And so I don't think it's that traditional astrology doesn't have it. I think it's that modern astrologers don't have it. And so we're kind of recreating on the fly something that was there all along. Does that make sense?
I totally stand corrected. Thank you.
Well, in the Mayan view, it's not so much that the planets aren't really primary. It's the count of days that's primary, but we use it to contact like I was saying earlier about our ancestors on the other side, and the spirits, our spirit guides around us. But some planets were very important, especially Venus and Mars and Jupiter. But it was the calendar that represents the vibration that was more important. So, of course, the origin, wanted to mention that the origin of the Mayan calendar, what they would tell you in their mythology, is that it comes from the Pleiades, and that there are 4 grandfathers that descended from the Pleiades to teach all of this wisdom to the Maya, everything about the calendar and astronomy and the pyramid, how to build the pyramids and agriculture and textiles and all that was taught from beings from the Pleiades. And of course, the Pleiadians are making a big comeback right now, and that was all told in the prophecies.
And what is that? Are making a comeback?
Well, like Bauerhand Clouds, the Pleiadian agenda, and a lot of the channeling that you see on like the Galactic Free Press. There's a lot of the Pleiadian channelings coming in, and that was part of the Mayan prophecy for 2012 that a lot of scholars kind of overlook or gloss over, the fact that they were pretty explicit about these grandfathers coming back from the Pleiades.
And a lot
so these are actually celestial intelligences.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've been really having my eyes open reading the work of Dolores Cannon. She's written a bunch of books based on what her hypnosis clients are experiencing as they move deep into remembering what they were before they were human, and visitations from other dimensions and other visitors, and it's really fascinating. Carlos, I really resonated with what you said. I now believe the Earth is just a basic giant galactic project where our intelligence was seated here, and we have been tended all along by other intelligences to help us along. That makes a whole lot of sense to me. I also, based on my ayahuasca experiences, know that these helpers don't just come in the physical world. A lot of them are in other dimensions. I so adored that the last Indiana Jones movie had the alien ship going not into outer space but into another dimension, which I think is a lot more true in many cases than an outer space deal. But, when you drink ayahuasca, you begin to experience other dimensions, other worlds, other levels of reality that we're normally blind to. And my worldview is so much vaster now. I totally get that there are many dimensions, many levels of intelligence so far beyond what most people perceive in the 3D world. And to be able to consciously interact and be of service in that heightened awareness is just really cool. Good stuff.
It's very cool.
Well, that's the beauty of the times that we live in, is that with this opening, we also have this gift of technology. And on the one hand, the technology may be causing its own spate of problems, but it gives us the chance to have this conversation in this place. And we're all in our virtual spaces in different states, in different actual United States.
Yes.
But every time I say something, I know the spirit is here when everything is a joke and has several meanings at the same time.
They like to play like that.
They do, and it makes me laugh. That's what happens when you invoke Mercury. You start laughing and giggling because it's all so cosmically entertaining.
Donna?
Yes.
What I get is the whole internet acceleration of communication is just laying the groundwork for global telepathy. Mm-hmm. I mean, first email, and now people are tweeting all the time, and there's this instantaneous communication going on between cell phones. Mm-hmm. But it's laying the groundwork to be in constant contact with others, and a lot of people are already making the shift, and they're doing it telepathically instead of needing to use their cell phone now or their tablet.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, so I definitely see that happening now. Where
you don't have to convince me. My teacher was in Australia, and when she wanted to get a hold of me, I did not need a phone. she was more than capable of ringing me whenever she needed to. So I've had my own experiences in that area as well.
Can I tell a quick ayahuasca telepathy story?
Please do.
It was very funny. The last time I went down to Peru last year and did a month down there. We were doing a ceremony, and what happens is, the ayahuasca is served, everybody drinks, and then you sit there for a while, let it take effect, and at some point he offers a second cup. And I figured I was fine. I did not need another cup. I was actually just had my eyes closed doing my own internal process. The ayahuasca was working. And all of a sudden, I got a voice in my head, and it was the shaman, Don Diego, instructing me to drink a second cup. And I looked up, and he was looking at me and holding out the cup he had already poured, waiting for me to come get it. It was just like, oh my God, he's right here in my head telling me to come get the second cup. And there was actually one ceremony where most of the night, for hours on end, he was there. Any time my attention would drift even slightest, he was right there calling me back to attention, right there in my head. It was just amazing.
Those are the similar kinds of experiences that I had sitting in ceremonial circles. It took a little while longer, because we had to practice and use the muscles to build up to it. But by the end, we'd compare experiences of the collective journey we were taking, and we were often seeing the same thing, which was obviously absolutely amazing to me.
Very cool. What I love is that the sensitivity that you get with doing something like ayahuasca, or I assume peyote, or other plant spirit teachers, or any process. The things that I was only able to do initially when I drank, I have many of those same sensitivities now all the time. Mm-hmm. I got fine-tuned up, so like when I work with a shamanic healing client, I can feel into their body and mm-hmm. feel what's going on, and to a degree see what I need to see to help clear the thing. So mm-hmm. It's so cool that it locks in after a while.
Well, we're all just going to have to come back and have another show and talk about this, because we only have 4 minutes left. Can you believe that the hour has flown by yet again? And I wanted to make sure that you both have a chance to tell the audience how that they can get a hold of you. So, Benjamin, how can we find you?
Go to astroshaman.com, and there you'll learn about my astrology, my shamanic healing, and my free invocations that can take you right into your own divine consciousness all on your own if you want. That's the best way, astroshaman.com. All my contact information is there.
Excellent. Carlos.
Cool. My website is cosmicjaguar.com, and I'm in the process of upgrading my website right now, so it should be functional, but I'm going to be completely changing it here in just a little while. But my email address is cosmicjaguar at yahoo.com. So, and lots of fun links on my site to my music and my art, and my readings that I do for people. I can do a complete Mayan calendar analysis and pinpoint all of your important days in the past and the future, and all your relationships can come into harmony. So please get hold of me.
Excellent. Well, I highly recommend either one of these gentlemen if you are in the market for looking for a shamanic astrologer. I've known them both for a while, and people ask me all the time how you know what the real deal is in astrology. And here are two people that I can recommend. So check them out and look it up to find out more. I'm your host, Donna Woodwell. I get to be with you every week. And you can find me at www.fourmoonsastrology.com. As I said, I am here in Austin, Texas. You can also find me on Facebook at Four Moons Astrology and Twitter at Lunalicious. I am Lunalicious.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you both for coming. And I hope those of you who are listening will tune in next week. Next week, we're going to be talking about planet trancing. So that's using hypnosis in order to contact your chart, your past lives, the spirits of your planets. So we are actually continuing the conversation in another form. Same time, same place. We are on at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 4 p.m. in the Pacific. And if you want to find out more about the Dead Astrologers Society, you can, of course, find us on Facebook. Come, like our page. Our page is at Dead Astrologers Society, or there's a page on my page that's all about the Dead Astrologers Society, too. So you can come to my website to find out more. And so I hope you will all join us as we continue our journey into all of these fabulous places. Astrology throughout history, astrology throughout time, and with fabulous people like Carlos and Benjamin. So thank you both for coming on the show tonight. I hope you enjoyed
you, Donna.
it.
Yes.
And I'm being told 1 minute left. So you want to vamp for 1 minute? You have final words you want to leave people with?
Yes.
Just
Go ahead, Carlos.
yeah, we are in a new time. The December 21st, it wasn't a pole shift or the sun didn't explode or anything like that, but there's definitely a lot of change, and I'm here to help people get a grasp on these new energies. So thank you.
My parting message is the most important thing you can do to help the greater good is to awaken. So use the invocations on my side or whatever technique gets you into that state of pure, clear awareness. One person who awakens can help countless others attain it themselves. It's like the 100th monkey idea. Your service is so much greater. Yeah.
Walking the path creates the space for other people to walk the path.
Yes.
So thank you very much for coming. We look forward to seeing you next week on the Dead Astrologer Society.